probably one time in a century or maybe more that you have, and not many states or nations have these chances, a pivotal moment in their history. And that probably this moment has arrived for Azerbaijan. And more recent events, of course, in liberation of Karabakh, restoration of territorial integrity, of sovereignty of Azerbaijan, is now opens a new chapter. I would say in the development of Azerbaijan, yes, but I would put this into context of regional development, because Azerbaijan cannot be separated from the developments that are going to take place in Central Eurasia as a whole. It's not just about South Caucasus. It is a much larger region, and Azerbaijan's, in a way, coming up in this part of the world as a country that has something to say for the shaping up of these new developments. That is, I think, is a pivotal. And I think there is a clear realization on the part of Azerbaijan what role it needs to play. And certainly President Aliyev's vision for the next, probably next presidential term that he has is to revive and put on the table a new version, a new vision for Azerbaijan and the region as a whole. Because in the next couple of years we are going to see fundamental changes in the Central Eurasia. This will probably touch South Caucasus, much larger region of Central Asia, and we certainly want to be a part of this development, and I think Azerbaijan is ready for it. When you consider the development path of Azerbaijan, of course, oil and gas or hydrocarbons are the essential, supplies of these developments, at least for last century for sure, and for initial decades of Azerbaijan development. Probably natural resources have been our main drivers, yes. Thanks to natural resources, we have most of the developments, or the spillover effect of these developments is now seen in our non-oil economy. Now the question is, what is going to be the driver of the next or new Azerbaijan? Certainly we can say that transport, logistic, trade is going to be one of the drivers. Of course, there are multiple areas where Azerbaijan is going to probably also come up on the table as a partner, whether it's agriculture, IT, or other sectors. But I think transport, logistic, and service sectors in particular are going to be distinguishable purely because of the role Azerbaijan has played in the past and what role it is going to assume in the upcoming decades. And one of the major roles where we think Azerbaijan is going to become a major player is its role of a major regional hub, be it a trade, logistic, transport hub that it used to play in the past. So the next decade, when it comes to transport, logistic, ports development, and Alat project as a whole, I think this is going to fundamentally change the way how Azerbaijan and the region as a whole is going to kind of demonstrate or put on the global scene of events. So that's, of course, port, transport, and Alat project as a whole is going to be the jewel of this development. Honestly, we are in the beginning of what we call the revival of 21st century Silk Road. But very few people really understand what is upcoming. It's very difficult to predict what is going to come in the future, but generally, to make some assumptions, you have to really understand the history. And that's where, when I was referring to Azerbaijan history or role in the ancient Silk Road, I think there are lessons that we should learn from our history. And the ancient Silk Road, obviously, was not just about corridors, it was about hubs. But these hubs were different. They were different in terms of services, one-star hotels, two-star hotels, and five-star hotels. And action really took place in five-star hubs that were across Eurasia, Bukhara, Samarkand, Merv at one point, which is today in Turkmenistan, and then Baghdad, Istanbul, of course. All these five stars were engines of growth, economic growth of the region as a whole, that were interconnected, and they were connecting also nation states and continents. So we are going to see in the next decades revival of this interconnection, interconnectivity between continents, between states, and within this, of course, the role of new hubs of 21st century, five-star hubs, are going to be extremely critical. We stand in Alat, in Azerbaijan, to create this five-star in Alat. And that five-star entails not just about your one or two infrastructure project. It's really about a lifestyle that is aimed for developing an ecosystem which is sustainable, healthy, green, digital, but it also serves a generation that is coming next. Millennials, Zetas, Alphas. So you are creating, in a way, a hub that is going to be both business hub, value creation hub with the free zone, etc., and an infrastructure hub that is going to serve and interconnect the continents and the people. So that's what really Alat is about. It's not just about an infrastructure project that acts as a door, which you use as a port, let's say, as a gateway, but it is much more than where you will be able to create value, and new innovations will come and be burst from Alat. Alat, I think, is a natural hub. For Alat, you don't need to create or close certain things. And I understand the reference that you are giving, quite innovative approach that in the Middle East, especially in Saudi Arabia, is taken. But all of these projects are taken with the consideration of creating a sustainable environment, etc. What Alat is really, it is different. Azerbaijan has a very good weather conditions, very good climate conditions. It has very good food, organic food. And we have a sea, which is Caspian Sea. So technically, you don't need to do much to create this hub, other than the fact that by natural form of it, I think Alat fits better in terms of what we want to put on the table. So, and plus, of course, all these concepts of regional interconnectivity, I think Alat's position is much better being on the western side of the Caspian, being close to major European countries, as well as kind of Central Eurasia, interconnecting both Central Asia, China, with Europe, and also Middle East. I think in that form, Alat has a very good chance of being one of the hubs, a five-star hub that is going to serve a number of new types of businesses, I would say, a new generation that will prefer to come and live and create in this part of the world. I think they already do. If you follow this, at least politically, if you follow some of the meetings of European or US leadership and their way of approaches to Central Asia, for example, for South Caucasus, and the focus on much more regional approach, that already is an indication that people start to understand the value. And of course, Azerbaijan acted as a game changer in this whole, and the resolution of Karabakh conflict was a trigger in a way. But now the priority is really put an end by signing a peace deal with Armenia and creating a peaceful environment, not only in the South Caucasus, but the entire region as a whole, which will then lead to prosperity for all. Because Silk Road flourished when there was peace and stability. Silk Road was destroyed when all the supply chain was destroyed. So it is essential that regional peace and stability prevails, that will then create a economic prosperity for all nations around. Azerbaijan has great potential, and the potential is not in the form of, okay, we have oil, we have money, our neighborhood is regionally stable or unstable. It is really about what you put on the table and what sort of model of development you choose. Yes? So I think the political leadership of Azerbaijan clearly understands this, and it in a way acts as a locomotive in terms of guiding certain regional developments that are taking place. We often tend to measure countries by sizes, It's a small country, it's a big country. Sometimes, maybe size-wise, 500 kilometers each way, country may have a much more weight when it comes to shaping up regional trends and developments. And I think Azerbaijan is one of them. And this is only positive, because the vision of Azerbaijan for the region as a whole is quite unique. It entails economic prosperity, peaceful coexistence, stability. And in that sense, I think bigger countries are now also listening to what Azerbaijan has to say, and many of them start to agree with it. In essence, you may say, yes, we are aiming to attract some of the Euro-Asian trade to us. But as I said, what the transit traffic adds to your economy in terms of diversification of your oil-rich policy, that's the question. So for us, of course, attracting as many transit cargo as possible to Azerbaijan is prerequisite, it's important. But much more important is how that trade is going to add to diversification of your economy. And in that sense, obviously, having a port and then a free zone nearby, an airport that is being built, to have that cargo or containers to come here, arrive, and then you can open it, take whatever is inside, add value on site, export it to 140 million people that live within the proximity of 1,000 kilometers, and then re-export the rest to the rest of the world, either by container, trucks, or air. That's what we think is going to contribute to Azerbaijan's and regional economic development. And certainly, it has to be the major kind of contributor of the development as well. But as I said, it was in the ancient times about hubs, the big hubs. It is not just about, transit cargo passing, using your infrastructure. That's fine. But at the end of the goal, the question is how this is going to contribute to my citizens, to my economy, And I think every country across this transit have been thinking about, okay, what can I do to make this trade contribute to my local economy? So I think in Azerbaijan, there is a clear understanding what we need to do, and we are already doing it. But this strategy is such that it is going to be win-win for all. Because the more I grow, the more my neighbors will grow. The more my neighbors will grow, the more I will grow. So that's the strategy of win-win. There will be eventually maybe a couple of 5 stars, couple of 3 stars that used to be 1 star. They will also grow. So in a sense, this is going to create a very huge network economic engines across Eurasia that is going to feed each other. I mean, this is regional development, of course. The trade itself always benefits yourself and also whoever you trade with. And of course, this is not within the scope of whatever I do daily, but this is a regional affairs that concerns us. And if you look at the map, you really understand that Armenia is bordered with Turkey on the one side, Azerbaijan on the next side, and Georgia and Iran on the other side. So realistically, you have to question what is your vision for the future of your country. And if one just looks at the map, the answer is very clear and obvious. You have to work with your neighbors if you want to develop your economy. So what President Aliyev has been saying regarding this message of peace is precisely this. Let's sign a peace deal and have a bright future for all. So it does entail that it means that not only Azerbaijanis, but also Armenians, Georgians, and everybody in this region is going to benefit from this peace deal and economic development. Firstly, infrastructure and the understanding for the need of better infrastructure that is clearly now understood by all countries, including Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, Georgia. And the second, the major shift has been around overall intention of all states regarding future. So there is a common understanding about synchronization, harmonization of policies, of infrastructure capacities. And everybody understands that if we are to benefit from the trade that is going to pass through us, we have to work together to make sure that we all benefit. So there is this clear understanding around this. Azerbaijan, of course, has, in a way, I would say, been one of the leading countries that have been pushing this agenda all the way to, let's say, decision of the president to move port from downtown to Alat was a wise decision much earlier in 2007, and the construction of the new port started around 2011 December, and then first phase in a way was inaugurated in 2018. Now we are expanding, we hope to start the second phase. So Port of Baku has a clear vision what are the needs for the middle corridor expansion. I think similar view is shared by Kazakhstan, because Kazakhstan has extended their ports and now they have built a new port in Kurik and they are expanding. Same idea is also with Turkmenistan, because Turkmenistan also built a new port. Now, once you have good infrastructure, now you start thinking about how I am going to fill it. And that's the question now is in the minds of many operators across this continent, the middle corridor. Now we are trying to work together with railways, shipping lines, with ports, and with international logistic operators who are yet to come into this middle corridor in full scale. Because let's not underestimate the role of private sector, international private sector, logistic businesses, shipping lines, that they have in the facilitation of trade. Without them, I think this middle corridor is going to be suboptimal. So we are yet to see a genuine kind of involvement of these companies in this corridor. They are, but it's sporadic, so there is no systematic, for example, involvement of the large shipping lines that you see, for example, in Rotterdam, in Dubai, in Singapore, where they take terminals, they operate it, they aim to extend their logistic services. This has started maybe in the last 5 years or so. And I think in the next 5 to 10 years, we are going to see intensification of that process. I think it has been addressed, and when we say lack of shipping capacity, we have to define, for example, shipping of what? Containers, trucks, wagons, rail wagons. I think there is more than enough capacity for shipping of rail trucks, for example. Azerbaijan Shipping Company has quite a sizable fleet. It's the largest fleet on the Caspian, and they have sizable amount of oil tankers for oil transportation. They have 15 plus ferries, which is Ro-Ro, which could carry both rail, wagons and trucks. And some also shipping lines of Kazakhstan and Turkmenistan are also operating on Ro-Ro and container traffic. There will be potentially a shortage of shipping, vessels? It could be if it's not well planned. But when it comes to Azerbaijan, Azerbaijan is planning, and I believe in Baku shipyard, Azerbaijan shipping company has already ordered a number of ships that are coming up. I think Kazakhstan is also planning to buy and build ships of their own, so is Turkmenistan, because they also have a shipyard. I think there is a clear understanding in all these countries that for this middle corridor to work, you have to have a sustainable, predictable number of vessels that are going to carry this cargo. So far, I think we have enough ships on the container, on the rail trucks. If you ask me about Ro-Ro, for example, normal trucks, I think if someone adds 1 or 2 vessels, it would actually increase the capacity of trucks as well across this. So, okay. And certainly for general cargo and bulk, there will be a huge need of ships that are going to carry lots of Central Asian cargo in our way and European cargo to Central Asia. I mean, you have to probably ask him how he does it, but I think he's very experienced, first of all. But the question is not about only the selection, but it is really interesting that the availability of such merit is the big achievement, yes? Because, you know, people like myself, we studied, of course, abroad, and I did study, for example, for my PhD with the government scholarship, for example. The very fact that Azerbaijan has been able to nurture all these young population, young people, who then come back to contribute to their nation, is already a big achievement. So the more pool of this meritocracy you have, the higher chances of selecting the right people would be. But I think Ms. President has a very sharp eye on who to select and when. And more recent, of course, cadre and people staff that he's selecting, I think he has a long-term strategy as to what he wants to achieve, and whether or not a particular person will be able to contribute to that vision. I think he does it, he understands it very well. So so far all these changes have been very transformative, gradual, and I think there is a reason for it. But I think each generation has its own pluses and contributions, and I think with all people now in the positions, I think we are ready for the next kind of challenge. Yes, it's very difficult to say whether he's a details man, but certainly whoever I met, for example, after the meeting with President, then they came, for example, came to visit port. They are always surprised how much information he has, how much details he has. You know, because you may be a generalist, but whatever topic they start talking, he knows about it. So he has, I would say, a very sharp memory, a very very advanced level of remembering things in terms of specifics into particular projects, and he certainly does understand transport, logistic, and middle corridor issues. I mean, much better than many experts around the world. So in that sense, but all this is very important for the vision. When a person knows what they are talking about, then it's easier for us, because then they dictate, they guide in a way the vision. So, and it's easier for us because we also have a clear understanding in terms of where we are headed.